Good morning, and thank you for the introduction, Jamar. It is a pleasure to be here with our esteemed panel. In doing my research on our panel here, I was just totally honored to be here, and I want to make sure that we get an introduction to each of them, even though our introductions here are not going to be able to touch the wide-ranging experience of our panel here. So first, I'd like to start with introducing Mr. Shannon Clarke. And Mr. Clarke is a senior software developer, and he works for himself these days after an illustrious career that includes the World Bank, that included the CIBC Bank. I'd love to talk to him more about his time at Polymath. You know, they're doing some interesting things now with tokenization of real world assets. I think we'll probably touch that as we move forward. Mr. Hollingsworth, thank you. Mr. Clarke, rather, thank you for joining us. Next is Ms. Jameela Hollingsworth, and she as well has an illustrious career. She is the Caribbean HR boss, and it is a pleasure to have her with us today. And she has an illustrative career as well, currently with the Barbados Tourism and Marketing Incorporated. And she has worked her way up through the ranks there. And no, she's got something new to share with us. So I guess the LinkedIn didn't serve me well this morning, but I'm more than happy for us to join us, share that with us as she moves forward. Next, Mr. Hollingsworth and I. Mr. Hollingsworth is the founder and the executive director of Bajan Digital Creations, Inc. He has been developing artificial intelligence for the last 4 years, and some of his work includes COVID-19 prediction models and computer vision models for marine organism detection. We see he's deep blue sea here with us this morning. Thank you for joining. Currently working on an application in artificial intelligence and biodiversity monitoring, right? It's called the Blue Bot Project. He has nearly 2 decades of experience in STEM education and degree and chemical and process engineering. Thank you for educating the youth, sir. That is the future. And we appreciate all of our panelists here today. I think we will start with Ms. Jameela Hollingsworth. Thank you very much. Let's make sure we get your tell us what you're up to now, please.
I actually traded place. I now work for the Cayman Islands government. So I am their strategic HR advisor.
Excellent, excellent. And so she's going to be telling us a little bit about how AI is reshaping the world as we know it from an HR perspective. So I'm going to start off with you, and you can kick us off. And so tell us a little bit how HR and AI are working together and how it's affecting your daily life.
Thank you. Good morning, and thank you for having me. I'm currently in Barbados now. I'm about to head back in about 2 hours. It's interesting coming and living in the Eastern Caribbean and going to the Western Caribbean, because in our civil service, we rely on AI very heavily for recruitment. As you know, Cayman is a hot spot for expats, and we intake a lot of CVs on a daily basis, and we do a lot of recruitment and a lot of training to develop the talent that we do have in our civil service. So we rely on AI very heavily to screen candidates, to do responses, to set up interviews. All of that is done through software that we use. So we've managed to streamline our HR teams very efficiently, because now we can focus on more strategic matters rather than administrative HR. In terms of our immigration, because most of our civil service are expats, in terms of getting those work permits out quicker, I'm happy to share and talk about how we've used AI to kind of streamline that kind of work permit process to make it a lot more simpler for businesses to come, set up, and people to be comfortable working in the Cayman Islands.
And it's amazing to see how fast AI can work. And so it's one of the things that we often see is that we use AI to make things easier, the tedious parts of our job, right, and help us identify patterns. But Mr. Antonio Hollingsworth, we talk about using AI, but let's get some groundwork here for our audience. What exactly is AI? And it's been around for a long time, isn't that right?
Yes, it's been around for a long time. So simplified, artificial intelligence is any software or process that mimics human intelligence. Keyword being mimics, copies it. So examples of artificial intelligence that we've been working with so far would be in facial recognition software, object detection software, filters for, augmented reality filters, chatbots, search engines to some extent, anomaly detection in banks, even in terms of fingerprint identification on your mobile devices. These are all applications of different forms of artificial intelligence.
And the one of the main things that we see in finance when we talk about artificial intelligence is, just like you said, the ability to recognize patterns, right? When we think about it from an HR perspective, have you seen any good applications that might that are used for training and development of current staff? Have you implemented any AI in any way like that?
Yeah, so we actually use AI to develop our performance development plans. The software filters what the gaps are in the person's CV, or it filters what the gaps are in terms of their performance management tool, and it helps us to create kind of like a roadmap for our employees. In the civil service, we have about 4,000 civil servants, so it's a lot to track. And like I said before, we've kind of tightened up our HR teams because we know have implemented this software. In the beginning, people were a bit fearful that they would lose their jobs because of AI. They didn't see the value that it could bring to the sector and how much more productive we could be as civil servants. But it has completely revolutionized the way we do things, from taking meeting minutes to recruitment to training to even development of our staff. So AI is a standard application on our government laptops now because that's just the way we do business. So I think everybody has accepted it and embraced how efficient it's made us.
And that's a great segue, because one of the things that we're here to talk about is how AI is going to affect business. And Jameela has just shared with us that it is just part of doing business now. So Antonio, can you talk to us about some other ways maybe that you've seen AI really get down to the nuts and bolts of business and help affect the bottom line?
I can say that from personal experience. We wouldn't exist without artificial intelligence, and no if or ands or buts about that. AI is at the core of our business. We utilize it to make new data products, and we also utilize it to find trends in the world. We utilize it to help improve the humans as we work together with artificial intelligence to improve our processes. So in terms of business, we see artificial intelligence as a way to, I wouldn't say 10x, I would more say 50x or more your business, because it allows you to move at lightning speed. It does pose some challenges. I will share one experience that we had. So we started off working on our artificial intelligence application, and in doing so, we managed to create a job and replace a job in the space of a year, because the AI was able to learn that quickly. And that doesn't bring a fear it shouldn't bring a fear to businesses. That's actually good for businesses, because it allows you to streamline your business to get a better value proposition. And also it allows you to fine tune what your human resource needs will actually be. So we found that artificial intelligence for business is extremely powerful because it allows you to move faster with lesser resources. And that's key to business right now, especially in these difficult times.
And you know what? It's moving at light speed, and being able to have information at your fingertips is really important. And so as an executive, and a little bit of a technologist myself, I've always thought of the idea of like Tony Hawk's virtual assistant that he can speak to and take care of business on a regular day. So how far are we away from that? And then to Jameela, once we hear that, what kind of customization needs to happen to make things even better for AI being used? Antonio, the first part was for you. What kind of how far away are we from having a real interactive virtual assistant?
I actually use a virtual assistant right now. So yeah, that's how to put it. I like for our use, we don't have one all-encompassing model yet. Emphasis on the word yet. But we will use chatbots to be able to handle the communication with the company. So if you go on a website, you can have a conversation with chatbot. The chatbot will figure out what you need and hand you over to a human if it needs to. We utilize out-of-the-box virtual assistants like Siri and Google, etc., that help us to set our calendars together. We use search engines. Well, we develop a behavior so that the search engines, in effect, do our bidding. So if you're looking for one single application that does everything, technically, the average person has access to Google Assistant or Siri or Bing, well, not so much Bing, or Siri to do that. But right now, what I'm seeing moving as large language models come into play, the algorithms are getting better at understanding language, and in being able to understand language, building applications into those established large language models allow them to do more stuff. So in terms of where we would be to having our own virtual assistant like Jarvis, I would say that in some cases, if you have the budget, we're there already. And in other cases, if you don't have the budget, that will probably be available for mass consumption within the next 2 years.
I love to hear it. I love to hear it. Jameela, so what kind of AI is great. One of the things that can be difficult when dealing with AI sometimes is making sure that it understands what we want back. Can you talk about any kind of challenges or maybe the learning curve with new folks who haven't had that experience, how you teach and train them to interact with the AI?
That's a great question. So to reduce some of the skepticism, we would have done training to explain to our staff what it can be used for, what the software can be used for. So anything like minutes, even something as simple as crafting an email, sometimes you struggle to find the words to kind of like word it properly and not come off as a bit harsh or direct. We did simple examples like that. Coming up with employee engagement survey questions, we would run an AI and we would show the HR practitioners that fall into our civil service how they could efficiently use the software to do their jobs more effectively. In terms of disciplinary hearings, crafting those letters, we would kind of show them how to train the software, how to respond to them, to where the software starts to understand how you speak and how you phrase things. So I think the more you use the software on a daily basis, the more the software kind of understands what your ask is. I'm not an IT expert, but from my usage of the software, the more you use the software, the more you give the software commands, the software kind of spits back the information or spits back content to you that is similar to what you're thinking or your language style. I don't know if behind the scenes, they're working to have it more user-friendly, but I do find sometimes when you input a particular command, it kind of refers you to a website. But so far, we have done extensive training on what can be done to eliminate time-wasting scenarios in the government, and it has been helpful for us. So I hope that kind of answers the question.
And it is a great segue to a very interesting topic when we think about AI, is kind of its recursive nature. We do have a tech expert here with us. And one of the things that that I've heard discussed in AI circles is, one, AI is learning as it goes. It is continuing to get better because it understands its role better as it grows, right? So Antonio, feel free to touch on that. And secondly, when we think about the AI learning from itself, right? Because sometimes we will take something that we created using AI and then feed it back into an AI software, right? And so, Antonio, I've heard some interesting discussions about that, and please take us away and tell us something.
All right. So in terms of demystifying the AI, the AI topic, some caveats that we need to understand. One, not all AI is learning AI. So AI is a big field. So we have artificial intelligence as a big field that mimics human intelligence. A subset of that, We have machine learning, where we actually have algorithms that learn from data. And then you have deep learning that uses neural network algorithms and such like. So I wish to make it clear, not all AI is actively learning AI. Okay? So that's one thing that we need to determine. So in doing that, we now split it into two. There are AI applications that are quote unquote narrow and static. They've been trained, they can only do one thing. They're doing that one thing really, really well. And then there's other artificial intelligence that's able to learn from the data that it's presented and interact that and the interaction that it has. So those are two different things. The area that most people are afraid of is the part where the AI learns. Now, this is a double-edged sword in that the models themselves are learning from us. So don't think of artificial intelligence learning or machines learning in the same way that a human being would learn. A human being is capable of making particular moral decisions and be influenced by a whole set of stuff that may not be relevant to, may not be based on the data on which it's trained. But in artificial intelligence, the machine normally doesn't have that limitation or that bias. So if you're interacting with the machine and the machine is learning behavior, it doesn't know whether that behavior is morally correct or morally wrong. And it's just going to learn on the data. And any biases that exist or are encoded in the data, that turns up in the model. And I'll give you an example. Looking at HR, one example of HR, if I took a data set and I'm training my model to be able to read applications, and my applications have a bias in them that I didn't know or didn't anticipate, it's possible for that bias to be encoded into my algorithm. And my algorithm may behave racist. It may behave with a particular bias that we didn't intend it to do, but it was detected in the data that is there. So there are two different fields that we need to split apart in terms of the AI. The advantage of having a tool that learns as we use it is a good thing. Because it allows us to be able to adapt to the situation. However, what people are afraid of is the concept of the AI getting out of control and learning more than us and being smarter than us. And that's not as, well, it depends. If we value smart and intelligence as who knows the most, then yes, AI will know more than us. If you value smart or intelligent as who is able to create something new or do something in a manner that is novel, humans will outperform AI all the time, all right? So it's something that we need to get away from in terms of the Terminator scenario and the Skynet scenario of AI taking over and terrifying us. And move into a place of understanding that the machine learns from us. We are shaping it. Now, in saying that, you hit a very, very important point where you mentioned the taking AI-generated content and putting it into AI to train AI on that. That's actually my fear. That's my nightmare. Generative AI. So for example, if the AI generates something and I'm putting it back into train, it's learning from itself. And you'd appreciate that in the human world, if we are learning only from ourselves, that's not good. No new data comes in, no new input comes in. And AI training on AI generated work actually makes AI useless. And that's something that we're concerned about, that I am very, very concerned about. Especially when you have human beings placing confidence in artificial intelligence, you run the risk of not knowing what is true and what is not. And that's dangerous for societies. That's really my concern. What happens when the truth is mixed up with fiction and no one can tell which is which? That's my nightmare, not the Skynet scenario.
So, and that is exactly what I have heard about that question about AI learning from things that it has already been, that it created, right? So I want to come back to that and that truth versus fiction concept. But Jameela, I want to ask a question for people who are looking for jobs. So if I'm looking for a job and now I know that I'm going to have an AI screening process on my resume, what kind of things can I shift or change or ensure or do well to make sure that I get past that first screen?
You want to make sure you use keywords. So just like how you would use keywords if you are applying in an application tracking system, which we call ATS software, you want to make sure you nail the keywords. So our government software, we use a software program called VISTA, VISTA, and we have pay transparency laws. So when you go on to our website, you can automatically see what qualifications are needed and the pay commensurate with that. So there's upfront, we have pay transparency laws. When you apply for the job, the program actually gives you an option to upload your CV and to complete a form. Once you've completed that form, you would have automatically kind of entered all of the keywords, but some applicants do not complete the form and just upload the resume, which is like their easier way out, but your resume could miss specific keywords. For example, some of our ministries require that you speak 2 languages. It is possible that the AI may have missed that you speak English and Spanish, or the AI might not have picked up that you have a bachelor's degree in management with a minor in Spanish or a minor in another language. So my advice would be to make sure you hit all the keywords. So look at the job description and make sure what we're asking for in the job description is kind of like embedded in your cover letter or your CV so that the software can easily pick up those keywords. We normally sometimes we go into the back end and do filtering if there are not enough candidates, but generally we have a demand for candidates. And this is just not CA, Bermuda is the same way, Anguilla is the same way. Generally, the British Overseas Territories, there's a high demand for highly skilled workers. So to get the best option, my suggestion would be is to make sure your CV has the keywords, and where there's 2 options of uploading your CV and filling the form, please do both. The software will also, some departments spit you back out like an assessment to do, like a psychometric assessment. That is pretty standard. And then after that assessment, you get another prompt for like an interview, and you can book all of that online or through your phone. So it's like a very seamless process of getting in your job application, getting screened for an interview and getting a response or interview date is very seamless in some departments. But other departments we're still working through. You're still getting used to the software, but most departments is very seamless.
I think that that's an interesting topic, because when we think about trying to make sure that the AI recognizes those keywords, one of the things I'm confident the people will do, and this will go back to our truth versus fiction topic, is they will take the job description, put it into an AI generated and create the resume using AI, and then submit the application to the company that will then review it using AI. So now we have a really easy example of that kind of recursive nature. And I'll give you another kind of interesting one, and then I want to take some questions from the audience as well. There recently was a professor, and the professor created an assignment using AI. Then she gave it to her students, and many of the students used the AI to complete the assignment. And then the assignment was graded using an AI tool. And so we see how disconnected things can get. And so that kind of gives us an idea that truth versus fiction, because the computer cannot tell if the assignment comes in correctly. Another example of a lawyer who used AI, and the AI completed a totally fabricated case and presented it in court. And the lawyer, he failed to do his own due diligence and review the document, right? So we see these examples that can become very worrisome, right? So maybe somebody doesn't catch that, and now we have someone's life in jeopardy because of a lazy lawyer and an AI that hallucinates. So, Antonia, talk to us a little bit about those kind of ideas, and then we'll take some audience questions.
You hit the nail right on the head. As much as I develop AI applications and I am all for artificial intelligence, one of the challenges, one of the conversations that we need to have in the Caribbean is what are the ethical uses of artificial intelligence? That is extremely important. So let's take the example of the lawyers. I'm familiar with that case. They utilize one large language model to do work, and the large language model was really good at presenting a case. The only reason why they got caught was because their opponents were actually specialized in that field. If they weren't, then it could pass under the radar. And those are things that we have great concern over. So as much as I see the application of generative AI as a tool, I caution that we need to determine where generative AI can be allowed. And more importantly, what are the ethical uses that we have? Now, I am caring about HR, and that's good. It helps you to read out a whole set of applications that may not meet the criteria. But the question I would ask is, if the artificial intelligence that's doing this isn't trained locally, so it may not have the local nuances, then you have a situation where your local people are being encouraged to learn how to talk to a machine in a context that's not their local context. So your society begins to change. And when that starts to happen, the question is it that the society is changing to benefit AI, or is it the society changing for the better in itself? And those are the really hard questions that we need to start having. The issue is not the technology. The technology works. The challenge is, how does the human being apply the technology? Personally, I don't use AI for things that have a very human-centered approach. So if I need to write an email, I will draft it, but I will write that. I prefer to talk to people because for my company policy, we see AI as a tool to benefit humans. Humans are always the first and foremost of the function, not the technology. And that's where the conversation needs to be in that regard. So I'll give you, before we go, one more example, which is a toss-up for people to start discussing and think about it. So I am a business owner, and let's say I hire someone to do a particular job. Is it ethical for me to have them do a job and train an AI that is essentially going to make their job redundant? Because that happens. I've had to do that. So those are things that are challenges that we need to have a conversation about.
Jameela, that's a great question. Thoughts, please.
Like I said before, when I moved to Cayman in May of this year. And when I came, the goal was to bring a more strategic way to how we do HR, how we practice HR. And that meant implementing technology, and two, being able to keep up with the demand and the highly skilled workers wanting to come to Cayman. When we implemented AI, we knew that some of our HR practitioners will be displaced, or not displaced in HR, because what we did is we found other areas that they could serve, whether it be policy, whether it be drafting. There are so many other areas that people can serve that you can't replace that human touch to doing work. You will always need a lawyer. You will always need a policy analyst. You will always need a trainer, a physical trainer. So we kind of reskilled and repositioned persons, so nobody was displaced out of a job. But that is a good ethical question that Antonio raised. I think that's something that people are still working through. But if you have the best interest of your staff at heart, I think you'll find a way how to reposition them so that they can be better utilized. What I would say from my personal experience, I love not having to do administrative duties. So I am not with Antonia on that, not writing my emails for me thing. I have ChatGPT on my phone, I have it on my laptop, I have it everywhere because I hate writing emails. So especially when you have emails at high volume, it's incredibly difficult to craft responses that are like customized for everyone. So I heavily rely on ChatGPT. I also want to respond to the thought of AI changing the society. And my answer to that would be, it depends on which society. The British Overseas Territories, specifically one that I live on, we are a melting pot of cultures. There are 110 nationalities represented in the civil service alone. That's the United Nations right there. So we have 110 nationalities represented. So whether it's AI or not, I think what makes us like the world-class civil service, we just got dubbed the world-class civil service 5 years ago, like the benchmark of where a civil service should be, is everyone from their different cultural backgrounds brings such diverse insight and input. So you have all of these highly skilled workers coming together in this small island and bringing such high value and cultural input that makes the island and the government truly a unique, living, breathing organism. And I think that's why it was so easy for us to implement artificial intelligence and the other software that we use, is because people are already thinking ahead. They're people from nations who are already ahead. And I think that makes it more palatable to accept that, the world is going in this direction anyway. We just have to create opportunities for our people to thrive before the rest of the world catches up. And I think that's what the CI government has been able to do, is to get ahead and be a leader in the market rather than trying to catch up.
And you know what? I think that you touched on it really well. Being forward looking into the AI and just lean into it. You're not putting the genie back in the bottle, right? And again, AI has actually been with us for some time now, right? It has been in our chatbots and a lot of places in our lives. It helps us predict text when we're doing things like that. So the technology has been around for a long time. What we're seeing now is it flourish and grow. And Mr. Clarke has joined us here, and he's also builds things. He's a senior software developer. So I want to get your thoughts. We've had a really robust discussion here.
Sure.
Tell us your thoughts on how you think AI is going to affect the future. And, specifically what we've been discussing is how is it going to affect us and it teach us things as we interact with it. Thank you for joining us.
Sure, no problem. Thanks for having me. I'm sorry to be a bit late here. But yeah, just generally, I really think that the impact of AI is going to be immense. I think it's already happening, perhaps in ways that we may not immediately be noticing, but we will suddenly be able to see more impact or more change within our lifestyle. So right now, we've seen it a lot in terms of helpful tools, such as like if I'm traveling to a new place or new geography, I can pull up my Google Maps. It's going to not only give me directions, it's even going to give me recommendations, probably even going to give me traffic. So it makes my life easier, right? In addition, I'm also seeing, in terms of social media, I'm seeing like different personalized recommendations. There's a good and bad to that. And that's where then we're going to see some of the impact. I know we're talking a lot about jobs, but let's look in terms of how it affects our lives first. So what we've been seeing is that a lot of our information that we've been putting out into the world, whether it's via social media or otherwise, is being captured by a lot of the internet giants, the tech giants, the Google, the Facebook, Microsoft, and they're using it in different ways to provide their services to us. Now, myself, I see Google, for instance, using my data completely different from perhaps something like Facebook or Meta in terms of how they've been using it, because it's a matter of, is it actually enhancing my life or is it trying to force me in a certain direction? And that's where we then need to think about in terms of AI. So for me, myself, I like to think of AI, that acronym, not necessarily as artificial intelligence, but as automation interface. What am I automating? What is it I'm doing today, right now? If I give the example, well, what is it I'm doing right now today manually? I'm taking, like, grabbing maybe a piece of paper, a physical map, and then I have to have a compass in order to know and navigate myself around this physical space. And I just have to pull up my phone, right? And my phone tells me where to go and what to do. Now, versus what we may be seeing in the future now, which is where we're seeing avatars. We're seeing that we can, use these AI tools to simulate human presence. So not only you could actually be talking to an AI avatar of myself right now, in terms of it looks, it sounds just like Shannon, or probably even speaks a lot like Shannon. And that is perhaps some of the impact that we then need to think about, and things that may shift our current means of interacting with each other. Now, there's a benefit to that. Imagine that if I had my avatar then standing for myself, then there's no way that I would miss him from this meeting. I could probably even just pick up after my avatar, say, hey, here's a presentation I want you to give for the first 5 minutes, and then I'll just chime in. We're already seeing that in a way. Now, that sounds scary, but think of it. We're already seeing that in terms of leave a message on my phone. We're just talking about the next evolution of that. Like, maybe you call me, you can't get me, but you can get the caller ID. What if it's not just a recorded message, but it's a message that can understand what you're telling me? Hey, Shannon, I want to follow up on something or some project you're working on. And then that AI avatar can respond to you. That's not too far-fetched, is it? The next step then, exactly, it's not too far-fetched. The next step then is that if you can actually see me, no, there should be disclaimers indicating that you're speaking to an avatar and you're not actually speaking to Shannon, because that then brings into another gray area, impersonations, where we could potentially have these avatars. And we're actually seeing some legal cases of that right now emerging, where avatars are indeed being legally created. Some persons are offering a license to their presence, their likeness to different media companies. But what if someone goes and they see a recording of this, not this Zoom session, but maybe myself on another YouTube video. They see my likeness, they see my voice, and then they decide to clone me. Perhaps one chooses to clone me, but you can see the example. Now, in that case, if I have not given my consent, then that's an issue. So in terms of this impact, and I'll get to the job discussion just very shortly, we then need to start thinking about, do we actually have sovereignty over our data in ways, sovereignty over our data, so that it's not used in ways that may compromise our own human rights? That's a specific thing. Now, we do have some groundwork for that. I'm not the legal, maybe Jameela can speak in on that. But in terms of, we do have some grounds in terms of the data protection and data privacy laws that we're seeing. The GDPR has set some foundation for it, but we're also going to need to think towards the future. So for myself, I think a lot in terms of automation interface. Now, in my opinion, not everything should be automated. So I heard someone mention the human touch is important. We still have secretaries at front desk for a reason. We want to have that human touch. People do business with people, with who they like, know, and trust. I don't think that's going to change. But I think what's going to change is probably the value discussion in terms of those interactions. Also, we're going to need to be careful that it doesn't change some of our own interactions, which we may indeed see become more and more prevalent. It may not be crazy at some point in time to be talking to our avatar, like a Black Mirror episode.
And I think that that's a great point. And, I like how you kind of humanize the concept of the avatar by comparing it to an answering machine, So that's a little bit interesting there. Jelani, I think you've got a question for us. Please share.
All right, good morning, everyone. I trust all is well with you. Firstly, thank you to the panel for a great session so far. I appreciate it. Solid job, David. I'm worried. I'm an educator. I am a consultant in the area of STEM education presently, moving into industrial automation. And I deal with the persons below this conversation. I deal with your students. And when I say below, I don't mean we are, they're beneath what we're doing. They're simply in categories where they're not necessarily having these discussions with us. You know why? Because they're in the classroom teaching. Problem, big problem. I'm worried. I'm worried because they don't know what's coming down the pipeline. I listened to what Jameela said, and I loved it. Keywords, excellent. But you know what? My students have no idea about this. Many educators have no idea about this. I'm worried. I'm thinking, okay, is it that they're going to teach them how to do this? But I'm not seeing it in the curriculum. I'm not seeing it shared. But yet this will exclude them from many jobs. This will exclude them from many careers. And so I'm worried. Now here's my question. How can we actually implement this at those levels? That's what I'm kind of wondering, right? Is it that we're going to do it on a private level, right, where persons have to pay for consultation to do this? Or is it that we are, at some point, we're going to realize, well, hey, since we are preparing the world for the youth to come, we can't live forever. Is it that we're going to do this, in terms of public training? When I lecture at Urdiston, I ensure to put it in, but at the same time, I don't teach everyone. So how are we going to do this? And also, do you know, this is a question to the panel, does anyone know of anyone in the Caribbean who is currently doing that, training educators in preparation for sharing this content and preparing them for this part of the world of work?
Jelani, that's an excellent question. I'm going to let the panel take that. I'm just going to add in a little bit more because that fear exists. It is widespread, and the fear of AI as well as avatars is a thing to consider as well. Please, anyone who wants to take that question, go for it.
I guess that falls to me, given my background STEM as a teacher. Okay, so you've asked a very nuanced question that we need to dissect, all right? One, we need to appreciate that the technology is going to change very quickly. So trying to train teachers to be able to use a form of the technology now would not be productive because in a year's time, it may change. I'll give you an example in my case. 3 years ago, there was a model that we were using was the standard for using in image recognition and also in natural language processing. 3 years ago, we used BERT model to be able to answer certain things and respond and do processing. That had its particular quirks. Today, the models have changed. The models have changed. The criteria that would make up the keywords that a model would understand, even in terms of your prompt engineering, changes over time as the model evolves. So what would make more sense is to have the technology available within the classroom setting or available to educators and have them see the direct interaction with it. So I'll give you an example in terms of mobile technology and the internet. When the internet came out, when I was a kid, when the internet came out, most people would work from books. You work from books. The internet was something you just use. But as time went on, educators now utilize search engines to find information and build their content. They now see a value of the value of the internet, and a child who can't use the internet is now functionally illiterate in our technological world. So where we need to go is that we need to bring the technology into the classroom, into the educator's life, into their keystrokes, as we put it. Now, one of the things that turn up in terms of the view is that right now the AI conversation is on generative AI, more specifically ChatGPT. And there's way more stuff before we reach ChatGPT, and we reach that. So we want to have the educators involved in it and having students understand how the machines work, how the programs work, just like robotics and coding. But in doing so, we need to direct the conversation in terms of our local needs and not let it fall into what the trends are doing. So as our esteemed facilitator pointed out, AI has been around for years. We're now having this conversation because it's quote unquote trending, but we've been using AI for years. And if we encourage people to be able to do that, that would help a lot. Is there anyone that is offering that service directly? That I don't know. I know there are times when we wanted to offer that service to educators, but again, the boogeyman, the AI boogeyman was seen as this is something complicated for technologists and people who are really, really smart. But now we need to move beyond that and say, okay, the issue is not the technology. The issue is how do we apply it to shape our lives and shape the future. And that's the conversation that we need to have.
This conversation has been excellent. Jameela, I want to come to you quickly because you've actually seen people experience that fear and overcome it. And you're teaching people in the workplace how to interact and feel comfortable using AI. So tell us a little bit about the journey that you've had in that vein, actually seeing people overcome that fear.
Sorry, David, my internet dipped a bit. Could you repeat the first part of the question?
Just your experience actually watching people see that fear. Okay, we're going to start using AI now. I'm scared it's going to take my job. But two things you've already pointed out is one, if you're committed to your employees, you will find a place for them to work. And number two, what's it been like when people get to the other side of that fear, and how has that transition been as you've watched people do it, as you've educated them?
Full transparency, before I moved, I had that fear as well. And it's only after I moved and I started to interact with professionals who are from Dubai, Qatar, South Africa, that I realized that my fear was lack of information on how these software actually is useful. So the more I educated myself, the more I used it, the more I received training, I realized like I'm working backwards. I'm doing administrative work instead of doing strategic work. So something as basic as like cabinet reports, or like if like a particular minister wants reports on, let's say, employee engagement across the civil service, that is something that could easily be framed in, let's say, ChatGPT. And then I put in like the figures and like I frame it out instead of building a report from scratch. I think most of the fear that we see in our employees is based on, okay, if we're moving in a more strategic direction, where does that leave me? How am I being upskilled or reskilled or retooled to still be of service and add value to the civil service? So I think what we've done a great job at is kind of showing, okay, these are the jobs that kind of won't be relevant anymore, but this is what you have to look forward to. These are the jobs that are going to be created as a result of the AI. They're going to be trainers. The Department of Education, they're going to introduce these particular teachers in schools. Like, there are a lot more jobs being created than there are jobs being lost. But I find most of the conversation, we focus on the negativity around AI and not on the opportunities. The last thing I would say is, I believe, this is my belief, this is not the government, but I believe that if we want to truly be competitive as a Caribbean people, we have to kind of like be first starters. So I'm an Apple girl. I know I can get beat on this call, but you know, I feel like we have to lean into technology when it first comes out. We have to master it. And because everybody is educated in this day and age, but it's the people that lean into the opportunity, whether it be a business opportunity or a technological opportunity first, they're going to be the ones who are going to be very successful. Because we operate in the BOT, the British Overseas Territories, we are competing with the UK, we're competing with Anguilla, we're competing with Turks, and these territories, like I said, we have 110 nationalities, and these are people with 4 and 5 degrees. The only way that you're going to remain competitive as a job seeker or an employee is if you truly lean in, you accept the technology, and you create value. That's the bottom line. You create value in whatever area you're placed in. So I hope I was able to provide some kind of valuable insight based on my personal experience. The truth is I was fearful when I went, but now I'm more open, and I believe that the value that I bring to the organization far outweighs, and my flexibility far outweighs whatever disadvantages the software could bring.
I love to hear it. You know, I think the takeaway from that is knowledge is power. Shannon, we're coming up to an end. Mr. Clarke, please take us home and give us your kind of closing thoughts here.
Okay, so I'll just follow up exactly on what Jameela just said. It's really about the value that you bring to the workplace, in your career, and as a professional itself. I think a lot of persons have been crippled by fear because we all say all these jobs are going to be lost. And you're talking about, okay, complete reskilling, like persons have to change completely. What we really need to look at is that AI is really a powerful assistant. It's almost like having your own intern, your own assistant, making sure that you're being as productive as possible. Think about it. We are all making X, how much salary, and if we really crunch it down, then that's a certain amount of money per hour. Should we really be spending that hour drafting that email? Should we really be spending that hour figuring out our calendar? No, let this powerful assistant do it for us. More importantly, what new opportunities, what new markets can that new assistant allow us to be able to access now that we can do more within our 8 hours a day? So we need to think about it like that. And more importantly, we need to grab the technology and not wait until Facebook, Google, etc. give us tools, but also make use of this tool, build our own, because we see where we want to take our careers. We don't need to wait. We don't need to wait for the future. AI is not the future. AI is now.
I don't think we could end on a better note than that. AI is not the future. AI is now. Mr. Clarke, I think that's the line. Our takeaways here are that AI is right now, and don't be afraid of it. Knowledge is power. Learn. That's going to be the thing that's going to take you to the next level so that you can get involved. I think we're still torn on whether we like to draft emails with AI or not, right? But we do know that we like the human touch, right? So the human touch will not leave us, whether we're drafting emails with AI or ChatGPT or not. So thank you, everyone, for joining us here today. It has been an absolute pleasure, a robust discussion. We didn't even get a chance to talk about robots, okay? So there's so much still left to learn about when we talk about AI and technology. A pleasure to be here. Thank you for the Internet Society of Barbados chapter. And it's been a pleasure to talk with you folks today.
Thanks. Take care.
Thank you. Take care.